Hello and welcome to Real Opinions, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Magnificent Seven remake. So this remake is directed by Antoine Fuqua, I think I'm saying that right. He's made a lot of movies that I actually really like. I think he's quite underrated. I think Shooter's really good. I think that The Equalizer was way better than it should have been. Olympus Has Fallen is among the better types of its film, and then obviously he made Training Day as well, which is quite very respected. We've got Denzel Washington as Oscar. So he's remaking The Magnificent Seven, a film that itself is a remake of Seven Samurai, as everyone has pointed out, and it's been told 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways. Bug's Life is basically the story of the Seven Samurai and The Magnificent Seven as well. So this remake is here with new cast, playing mostly new characters. I think like Chris Pratt's character kind of is reminiscent of Steve McQueen's character in the original. There's like a little bit of kind of parallels, but generally they're all kind of new characters. And what makes it a remake is that the story is the same. But as remakes go, it's definitely not one of the ones where it's shot for shot, basically the same movie. Like I said, new characters. It's basically the loose concept of the story, but it's not the same. Different villain, different structure, which all of these things are good. This is how you do a remake. You take the story and you retell it. So we have Chris Pratt, we have Denzel Washington, we have Vincent D'Onofrio, Ethan Hawke, and then people whose names I don't know, and I'm going to research them right now. Yeah, you also got Manuel Garcia Ruffalo, Martin Sensmeyer, and Byung-hun Lee. I hope I've said these names right. They're your new Magnificent Seven. And for those who don't know, the basic gist is that a town is being tormented and controlled by an outlaw. In this case, he's like a businessman, played by Peter Sarsgaard. He's like come into the town, threatened all the people. He's like burnt down their churches. He's trying to like exploit their land for money. And so one of the women in the town whose husband was shot by Peter Sarsgaard goes to find some famous like outlaws and bounty hunters to try and defend the town for them. So she goes to hire the Magnificent Seven, and along the way the Magnificent Seven kind of teach them, the townspeople, how to fight back, and it becomes a film that is mainly about the Magnificent Seven sort of bonding, kind of learning to sort of care about other people, and then it all comes together in a massive action sequence at the end. I really liked this film. This is the most surprised I've been at a film probably all year. I'm thinking, I can't think of another film where I left going like, whoa. I wanted to see it. I thought it might be a fun distraction, but I ended up really liking it. I thought the characters were good. I thought the performances were by and large pretty great. Denzel Washington is always fantastic. He's always excellent, and he's great here. Ethan Hawke was good. Vincent D'Onofrio is really weird. He does this sort of like really high-pitched voice, and he plays like a God-fearing trapper who's really violent. He's great. The knife guy, that's Byung-hun Lee, he was awesome. And I actually really liked Peter Sarsgaard's villain as well. Like, and I don't know how often we talk about villains being kind of blah today. He's not in it anywhere near enough, which I think is the downside to his villain. But I thought he was sort of threatening and hateable. And I think Peter Sarsgaard's generally an underrated actor, and he plays villains really well. But he does this kind of thing where he looks like he's barely even paying attention to the things that are happening, because he's that like much above it, and he's that arrogant, and he looks sleepy, but I don't mean that in a criticism of his performance way. I think it really works for his character. He looks like he just doesn't give a crap about anything that's going on. So the performances, great. The writing, I thought the writing was quite strong here, which is not something that I was expecting, because as I said, I like the director and I expected strong direction from him, but the writing is all done by Nick Pizzolatto, who wrote True Detective, and I think you can actually see that in there. The good season of True Detective, like True Detective season 1, where like characters talk in these like metaphors and turns of phrases that are quite clever. Some of it's quite witty. I quite like some of the way that people threaten each other or like intimidate each other through like veiled metaphors and things, and there's lots of like that kind of good sort of noirish writing, like almost hard-boiled kind of stuff in this Western film. I think it works really well. There's also a lot of good character development, like there's so many characters in this film. It's not just the Magnificent Seven, but you got all the townspeople, the villains, and I felt like I got to know them all. I got to hints of their backstories, and I got to see them all interact with each other, which is another thing. Like, I felt like every character had a moment where they were talking to the other characters, and I understood where they, like, how they stood between each other, how they interacted with each other, how they felt about each other. That was really good. So I thought the writing was surprisingly excellent. It takes time as well. This isn't like a modern remake where they just shove in action sequences throughout. You get like 2 big action sequences, and they are big action sequences. But it's very patient. It spends a lot of time making sure that all the characters are well established, making sure that you understand the story. It's just good old-fashioned, clear storytelling, which I really appreciated, because in some ways this reminded me of Suicide Squad. It's, you know, a team of kind of roguish people who have to band together to do something good. Lots of characters all over the place. But here, it's so clear. The storytelling's so much clearer, so much better structured, and everything just flows. It's really well told, solid storytelling. It's not like, it's not, I didn't sit there going, wow, this is reinventing cinema. The screenplay is like Shakespeare. I just mean it's good, solid classic storytelling that makes sense. I understand all the characters. Dialogue was good. Structure was good. Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. It even deals with some of the same themes as True Detective. There's a lot of things about like revenge and people's past, and a lot of stuff about religion. I mean, if you've watched True Detective, you know they're always going on about religion and God, and there's a lot of like really kind of almost quite dark moments involving religion here. Like I said, the opening of the film, the villain like walks into a church, starts like saying that like this country equates democracy to capitalism and capitalism to God. So if you stand in the way of my capitalism, you're standing in the way of God, and starts threatening everyone really darkly in this church, and then sets it on fire and shoots people, and it's genuinely quite disturbing. And then all the way through there is this undercurrent of like religion that did remind me a lot of True Detective, and I think it gave the film like its own personality and identity beyond just being a bland remake. It was like concerned with its own themes, and it had like its own worries and like concerns, and I think that gave it a bit more than just it is a modern remake with Chris Pratt. Speaking of Chris Pratt, he's good in this movie. He is funny, he is cool. There are definitely moments, however, where it feels like he's playing Chris Pratt, and that he is not from the Wild West. He is a modern person who has stumbled into this Western and is like, oh my god, look how cool it is, I'm in a Western. And that was a little jarring when everyone else is playing it quite straight, but whatever. The action in this film is surprisingly incredible. The final, like, I don't know, half an hour at least of this film is a massive battle where Peter Sarsgaard's villain leads just a horde of men that he's hired into this town. And I mean like a battle as the town people and the Magnificent Seven fight off. It's like huge scale war. Actually, there's a fair few similarities between this battle and the Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones this year. There was like a few things where I was like, oh, that's just like in the Battle of the Bastards. It's really, really good. It's an incredible, well shot, well choreographed, inventive battle sequence. It goes on for a long time, but there's stakes. There is proper stakes here. Why do we not have stakes in action films more? Because I was genuinely surprised. I won't spoil the film, but if you've seen the original, you know that people die. Quite a lot of, characters that you know die. And in this, loads of people die. And it meant that the battle had proper stakes. There was drama. It was well sort of balanced too. Like, you got massive machine gun fire, horses charging in, but also some intimate moments within the battle. Everyone was doing their own thing. Ethan Hawke was up there sniping from a bell tower like the guy from the film Inglourious Bastards. You had the Indian guy getting in a knife fight with another Indian guy. It was really good. I was on the edge of my seat for the entire battle sequence. I was so surprised. And also it's a 12 in England, but I would say this is pushing the 12 as far as it can go. I can't remember the last time I saw a 12 rated film this violent. There were genuinely moments where I was like, he just shot a man's ear off, or like, he just gutted that man on the screen. And like, you were seeing blood and people's heads were getting shot off, and it was like, I can see how it would just fit into the 12, but I mean, wow, it was pushing it. It was I bet they probably had to make some cuts. Let's put it this way. Yeah. Good practical action, well choreographed action. Denzel Washington is really like badass in these fights. Like he's doing all these stunts and all these quick gunplay moves, and he looks really cool. This is just a really, really fun film. Like it just does everything right. It's not like there's any aspect of it that is 10 out of 10 amazing. It just does everything right. It has none of the modern bullshit. There's no villain that turns up 15 minutes from the end and is introduced all of a sudden. There's no confusing over elaborate story. There's no shaky cam or any of this nonsense. It's just good classic storytelling, and I think that's what Antoine Fuqua does well, because he just does really well executes films that should be quite generic. Things like Shooter and Olympus Has Fallen are just basic action films. There's nothing that special about them apart from the fact that they're just well handled, and that's what this is like too. Well directed, well written, well acted, great score, good cinematography, coherent storytelling. Visually, it looks great. It's well edited. Everything's just really good, really solid, and I thought it was really fun. I thought it did a good enough job of separating itself from the original whilst also maintaining the similar spirit of the original. I was really surprised by this film, and I will give this a high, and I mean a high, 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and like and subscribe for more like this.